Hi everyone, and welcome to the final session of Digital Building Week. It's been a really great week for us here at Building Design and Housing today. So grateful for everyone who's joined any of our sessions. And we're really excited about this last session, Cyber Essentials, Starting Your Cyber Journey. If you want to catch up on any of the sessions that have already taken place, please just visit any of our homepages where you can find details of viewing the program, and every session that we've had so far this week is available on demand and free. So please join us as we listen to Peter Hodgson, Engineering Director at Viewpoint, as he tells us all about Cyber Essentials and starting your cyber journey.
Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar about Cyber Essentials, starting your cybersecurity journey. I'm Pete Hodgson. I'm the Engineering Director for Viewpoint, based in our Newcastle office in the northeast of England. And as it shows on the slide there, I've got, well, let's just say a number of years experience in the software industry, both with Viewpoint, who are part of Trimble, and a number of other global software companies. So in today's webinar, we're going to talk about cybersecurity, and we'll briefly look at why it's important to Viewpoint, but also why it should really be important to you and your organization as well. With that established, we'll explore how you might plan your particular cybersecurity journey, perhaps your first steps on a path to gaining a Cyber Essentials certification, and how you might then look further down the road. So, Viewpoint, as you are hopefully aware and have heard, Viewpoint are part of Trimble, and we specialize in cloud-based solutions for the construction industry. Two of the main services that we provide in the UK are Viewpoint for Projects, VFP, which provides a place where companies and teams can securely collaborate on and share documents and drawings and information in the cloud, in what we often refer to as a common data environment. So that's VFP. And secondly, FieldView, which is a mobile site snagging and forms tool for use in the field, that helps people in the field coordinate their site activities with their office. These services process literally millions of documents every month, and we are trusted to process and store a lot of important and confidential information, either in those documents or the emails or the workflows that are involved in those processes. So, unsurprisingly, we don't take that trust from our customers for granted, and we take our responsibility extremely seriously. As Ryan Johnson, who is our Director of Cybersecurity, as he says there, we want our customers to know that we invest significant efforts in the cybersecurity environments, and we want to earn and maintain our customers' trust. So to do that, we want to be very sure that we are doing the right things in terms of securing that important information and all the cybersecurity processes around it. We want to be absolutely sure we're doing the very best for our customers. So how do we do that? Well, one really obvious way is we look to certifications by third parties, accredited, independent security experts, to verify that what we are doing is correct and we're doing the right things, and to reveal any flaws, any concerns or issues that there might be, so we can address them, so that we can sleep soundly at night, knowing that we're doing all the right things. We currently have Cyber Essentials, which we'll talk about in some detail, Cyber Essentials Plus, ISO 27001, which is a data security standard, and something called SOC 2, which is another largely American originating security standard. And we're also all the time looking at others. We're currently looking at something called NIST 800. We're looking at an emerging standard called CMMC. And there are lots of these things out there. They all have their different areas of strengths and focus on slightly different things. So anyway, that's why we pay attention to certifications and why we think they're a good thing. And they're a good thing because they're independent verification of what you're doing, and it helps give you confidence in what you're doing. So that's why we're interested in certifications and doing the right thing. So why might you pay attention? Someone said to me, "Is there a test?" And I said, "Yes, there will be a test. The thing is, I don't know when your particular test will be, or what particular cybersecurity questions might be asked. But I can tell you that it's absolutely worth preparing for that test, because chances are it will happen. And obviously, the test isn't a written test; it's a real-world test of your cybersecurity defenses. And you know, everybody's seen the headlines, right? Whether it's a bank being breached, an airline losing customer data, some Russian or Chinese hackers crippling some company. It's all really scary stuff. And and to some extent, don't be too scared. Be prepared. That's the kind of mantra from me. There is reason not to be scared if you are prepared and vigilant. But as you can see here, some of the facts and figures, we definitely can't really afford to be complacent. 65% of medium-sized businesses reported an attack in the last year. That's really high. The risks are increasing all the time. The whole COVID situation has made those risks greater. The fact that we've got lots of people working from home, they're not in an office environment where all their hardware and software is sort of more tightly controlled. Upgrading hardware and software is much more challenging for businesses. 95% of medium businesses say cybersecurity is a high priority. Good. But actually only something like 38% have actually provided staff with training. So that's not really given cybersecurity the high priority that it deserves. Talking about Cyber Essentials in particular, actually only 14% of businesses are actually aware of the Cyber Essentials scheme, which I was quite surprised about. And only 4% actually say they adhere to its principles. Never mind getting the certificate. Some people say, well, we've looked at it and we follow what it says, but we haven't bothered to get a certificate to prove it. That's shockingly low. But if you look at the chart on the right there, this is based on the government statistics for 2021 that were published back in March. There's some really common types of attacks that businesses report. And in fact, 80% of these very common attacks could easily be prevented with the very most basic measures. So you can deal with it's the old 80-20 rule, I guess. You can deal with 80% of the attacks by doing, probably only 20% of the work. You just need to get the basics right. And, most hackers are not some group of Russian super criminals. They are far more likely to be lazy opportunists, akin to somebody trying an open car door. If they find a car door that's locked, maybe a car with an immobilizer, no valuables on shore, they're not going to bother with that one. They're going to go to the next car. Maybe the door's open. Maybe there's a laptop left on the back seat. That's what most hackers are. They're opportunists and they're lazy. They don't want to waste time on secure systems that's going to take them a lot of effort to get into. They'll go to the next thing because there's lots of open car doors all over the place. So hopefully you're here because you kind of got an interest in maybe starting somewhere. If you haven't really looked at Cyber Essentials before, or you're wondering where to start when it comes to Cyber Essentials, you need to plan a journey to get to where you want to go. And kind of there's it's a very simple roadmap, if you like, about how you might plan that journey. I've laid out 4 hopefully fairly straightforward steps. First of all, like I said, plan. You're here listening to me, which I appreciate, and that's a good start, because you want to know the basics and find out possible routes forward. And I would say it's important to set off on that journey with the absolute right attitude. You want to set off with the attitude that you want to find out about your weaknesses and fix them. It's sometimes hard, finding out that there's issues to deal with, but you need to go into this understanding that you will find things that need putting right. So you need to set off with the right attitude. You need to make sure that you have the support of your business. Often that means explaining why you should be doing this, understanding what the costs are, and understanding what the benefits are so that you can explain them to your business stakeholders. And hopefully through that understanding, you'll get the support of the business to do what you need to do to address cybersecurity. Secondly, you need to understand and set some sensible goals. Think about what you want to achieve in terms of reducing your risk to attacks. Understand what data that you process or hold. I spoke earlier about what Viewpoint do. We process lots of important documents for customers, lots of emails, lots of other information. Well, what do you as a company process? What information do you hold? Perhaps it's just your own data, but again, it could be sensitive information. So you need to understand what data you process, what you store, where you store it, understand what the biggest risks to you are, and do some simple desk-based disaster planning. What would happen if is a great question to start with. What would happen if our computer systems were unavailable because of some ransomware attack, or our internet was unavailable? Think about that. Helps you when you think about those things. It helps you understand where your risks are, and that's a really important thing to understand. Thirdly, I would say, get some advice. You're not the first person doing this. There's a lot of help out there, especially for Cyber Essentials, and much of it is actually free. So that's good. And finally, when you're on this journey, look out the window, if you like, evaluate how you're doing. understand what you've learned, make sure that when you learn something, you discover something, you put something in place to stop it happening again. And again, as you go through this journey, keep your business informed, be open and honest with them in terms of what you're finding and what you need to do. Certifications. So, as I've kind of indicated already, certifications are a really great way to be assured that you're doing the right thing. And it's not just yourself. You're also, by having a certificate, you're assuring other people, important people like your customers, suppliers, perhaps there's an authority, a business authority, an industry body that you need to assure that you are doing the right things and you've got independent verification of that. Importantly, certifications actually give you a really clear competitive advantage. We saw earlier that very few companies actually have them. And increasingly, they are table stakes, if you like, for getting into bidding and certain other things that, contracts will now increasingly say you've got to have Cyber Essentials is the most common starting point in the UK. That's the most basic certification in the UK, and many contracts now are starting to say if you don't have that, we're not even going to talk to you. So Cyber Essentials, as I say, it's the most common starting point for customers in the UK who are interested in companies in the UK, I should say, who are interested in getting into cybersecurity. It's a really simple, effective scheme. It's backed by the UK government. It's basically 2 levels. There is Cyber Essentials, and then there's Cyber Essentials Plus. Cyber Essentials is a self-assessment. It's designed to protect you against, as I said, the most common types of cyber attacks. So it's basically a questionnaire that you complete that is then reviewed by a certification body to see how you stack up against the requirements. Cyber Essential Plus is a little bit more of an advanced step in terms of an independent auditor will actually come and verify your answers and check your systems and hardware to ensure that you're doing everything possible according to the standard. As I said, advantages of doing these things, it assures customers you're serious about cybersecurity. Lots of government contracts especially require Cyber Essentials. It gives you a clear picture of your cyber security level, and it's a step towards further action. If you look to the little panel on the right, the costs for Cyber Essentials, fairly low. The starting point is probably £300 current pricing, plus VAT for certification for 12 months. And so Cyber Essentials, it's basically a questionnaire that you need to prepare first, understand what Cyber Essentials is about. There's a lot of material which we'll cover in a minute. Then you complete a questionnaire. You get usually a director, somebody from your company, to attest to its accuracy. And then you send that to the certification body. They review all your answers. And typically certification then takes less than a week. 2 or 3 days is quite usual if your certification body's not got a big a rush on. So it's relatively quick, and you can get that certification reasonably swiftly. So I mentioned preparing for Cyber Essentials. There is a lot of information out there, and because it's the government backed, the UK government are very, very keen that companies increasingly adopt this certification. So you can prepare by reading the requirements, which there's links in the slides to show where you can get access to this. But basically, it's the National Cybersecurity Centre website. That's ncsc.gov. And if you look on there and look up for Cyber Essentials, you'll find a lot of these pages. So there's a resource page, which gives you some frequently asked questions. It goes through all the requirements, tells you what you should expect, and there's information leaflets as well. And it's a good thing as well to use some of these resources to educate other people in your business about why you're doing that and what the advantages are. So definitely prepare by understanding what the certification is about. There's actually a really good tool online as well, same place, on the NCSC site. It'll take you to this Get Ready for Cyber Essentials page. This is an interactive tool. It'll actually take you through all the questions. Just answer them honestly. This is just like it's like a mock exam, if you like. Takes you through all the questions. Just answer them honestly. You can save it and come back to it. Because you might need some colleagues to help out. You might need your IT person to help out, for example. So you can use this tool online. And at the end, once you've answered all the questions, it will provide you a nice little report. It'll tell you which things you're good at, which things you need pay more attention to. It'll give you an action plan. So it'll say what exactly you need to do. And then once you've kind of worked through that, you've taken action where it's highlighted things that you need to do, then you're kind of ready to actually do the proper certification. And you can choose, there's a whole host of certification bodies out there. Again, there's links on the National Cybersecurity Centre site that will point you to those. And there's the basic one is £300. You just answer the questions yourself, and the certification body will then review that. You can get others where a qualified company will help you. It will guide you through. They normally charge a little bit for that. It can take the costs up, to about £600, £800, but you'll have a helping hand. They'll provide advice. This is especially useful if perhaps you don't really have a significant IT department, or you're just new to this. The first time that I went through this, we chose the handheld version. It cost us a little bit more, but it helped us get it the first time round. So in the long run, that probably saves us a little money and time. So just looking in a bit more detail about exactly what is in Cyber Essentials, it's talked about the questions and what it might ask you to do. So just looking at that in a bit more detail, there's several sections really. The first section is just really about your business. How many employees have you got? It asks you why you're getting certified, which I thought was an interesting question, because it wants to understand the drivers for the business, and that's really trying to get at, does the business really want this for the right reasons? Do you want to improve your cybersecurity? It then asks you a little bit in terms of scope. So how many offices have you got? How many devices, how many PCs, laptops, mobiles are in your business? What operating systems are in use? And what sort of networks have you got? Have you got routers or firewalls? And how are they configured and set up? Now, it's a good exercise to go through anyway, because it's always a very good idea to know what devices and systems you have. And if you don't have an accurate list of that, I'd recommend you go and do that. So Cyber Essentials, again, will force you down doing some really good practices. And then probably the third part of the questionnaire is around the management and processes that you've got in place. Things like, how do you manage passwords? Hopefully people don't just write them down on sticky notes. How do you communicate to your staff what they should do about passwords? How do you manage user accounts? So how do you manage when a new person starts at your company? How do they get a user account? Do they share accounts? Hopefully not. Are you reviewing the use of those user accounts when somebody changes role? Should they have the same privileges once they've changed role or not, for example? How do you manage your software? Can anybody install anything, for example, on your laptops, or do you have some sort of policy or controls over that? How do you manage updates to that software? Is somebody making sure, or is there a process in place to make sure that you've only got the latest patches and latest software on your company equipment? What about defensive measures? Things like antivirus and safe web browsing. Have you got those measures deployed across your assets? Have you thought about insurance? It asks about cybersecurity insurance, which you can get these days. So basically, in a very brief way, that's the summary of the types of questions it's going to ask you. And actually, there's only 5 basic controls that it's looking to answer here. It's the internet is clearly the weak point. As soon as you connect to the internet, you're open to all sorts of attacks potentially. So have you got a firewall to secure your internet connection? That's the first thing it's looking for. The second thing is, do you use secure settings for your devices and software? So do you just take something out of the box and use it, or do you make sure that it's configured securely? Do you have all the right adjustments and settings in place, whether it's software or hardware? Do you control access to your systems and data? Hopefully things are protected by accounts. You've got to log in, you've got to provide a password. And how do you manage those accounts and the people that are using those systems? How do you defend against viruses and malware? And how do you keep devices and software up to date? So those are the 5 controls. And I'm going to give you 2 more tips on top of that, which I think is really good practice. It's really to monitor and check. So have a list of all your equipment, have a list of all your software, keep checking the number of accounts you've got, who's accessing systems. If you can monitor and check things throughout and keep reporting that to your business, that's really good practice. And the last thing is educate and train your staff. Tell them about cybersecurity, educate them, and keep pushing that message about why they need to be aware of the risks involved in when they connect to the internet, when they answer dodgy emails, to really push that to your staff as well. Once you've done the questionnaire, as I said, you need to get a company director normally to attest to the accuracy that what you've said is accurate, and then submit it. Before I leave this slide, there are some really good free training sites out there. Again, the National Cybersecurity Centre provides some really good basic training. It's free. You can point your staff at it. It takes about 20 minutes to 30 minutes to complete. So I'd recommend you have a look at that. If you don't know where to go for training, there's some great free stuff out there. Once you've actually got your certificate, kind of welcome to the club and everything, you can get to display your certificate and logo on your website. You might want to check that your listing, they maintain a register of everybody that's certified so that customers and suppliers can look you up. You might want to check that out, and you certainly want to shout about it. Let your, you want to maybe check also that whether your suppliers are listed. Do they have Cyber Essentials? If they don't, you might want to encourage them, because we're all kind of in a supply chain of some sort. And if your suppliers are at risk, then potentially you are. If you're relying on a supplier that has a terrible cyber attack, and they can't provide their services to you, then you're at risk. So I would definitely encourage you as well to look up, your suppliers and see if they're got a Cyber Essentials certificate. Okay. Once you've got Cyber Essentials certified, there's a few different other possibilities for next steps. Cyber Essentials Plus, as I mentioned, that is very similar. You've got to have Cyber Essentials before you move on to Cyber Essentials Plus. It follows a very similar approach. It's a bit more detailed. It's a bit more hands-on technically. As I said, there's an auditor will, prior to COVID, if somebody actually came to your site typically and spoke to you, spoke to some users, checked things, looked at your laptop, looked at, you have to give them so many samples of laptops to look at, so many mobile devices. They actually, last year for us, our authority actually did it all remotely, and it went really smoothly. You have to give them remote access, and they'll take you through that. But it's, it can all be done remotely. I suspect that in the future, more and more companies will just do it remotely anyway. But it's basically a sampling approach is taken as well. So let's say, your company has 100 laptops. They might want to look at, 5 or 10 to check them out. It really helps if you have a standard system, if you have a standard laptop and everybody gets the same thing. Because if you have, or a standard operating system, everything's running on the latest version of Windows, for example. Because if you've got, a hodgepodge of Windows and Apple and lots of other different types of devices, the certification body will want to look at each of those, and it'll take a sample from each of those different things you've got. And some of the costs for Cyber Essentials Plus are based on the amount of work that the auditor has to do. So if they have to audit a lot of machines and a lot of different types of things, that will push the costs up. Typically, you should be thinking about £1,500 for a Cyber Essentials Plus certification for a reasonable sized business. So you need Cyber Essentials first, and then you can get Cyber Essentials Plus after that. There's some other international ISO, IEC standards as well that are kind of next level. Again, there's ISO 27001, which is the Information Security Management Standard. 27002 is information technology. It's security techniques, and it's more of a code of practice. And there's also something called 27701, which is the data compliance management standard. Probably a lot of you might have heard of GDPR. That's the standard for that. All of those standards, 27001 is probably the most common one for information security management. But they do take a lot of work. These are things that you need systems in place, you need policies and procedures in place. You'll get audited every year, and it's quite a significant amount of effort to get that. There's other certifications as well. I mentioned SOC earlier, more certainly a focus in the US. If you do any business in the US, that's definitely one to look at. There's also, specialist industry ones in the UK. If you're doing any construction work for UK defence or government, you might be asked about something called DART, which is a defence standard as well. So lots of options out there, but start with, if you haven't done anything so far, start with Cyber Essentials. As I said, it's relatively simple, relatively straightforward, and there's a lot of support and information available to you for that. Okay, so really quick recap. The threat's definitely real. There's a lot out there, but like I say, like 80–90% of it can be eliminated with really basic precautions. So do the basics first, do them well, and you're going to reduce your risk by a whole heap. Cyber Essentials, great place to start, relatively simple, and there's a lot of support for you out there. Definitely, follow the old prepare, plan, do, act cycle, if you like. Understand what you need to do. Again, Cyber Essentials, there's preparation information, there's preparation tools, there's like mock exams to make you understand, give you a great understanding of where you are. Use all those available resources. A lot of them are free. Definitely seek advice and help from people who've done this before. And get certified and then shout about it, because like I said, it's a fantastic competitive advantage for any company these days. And then important as well is, once you've got certified, your certificate typically lasts for 1 year, so you've got to stay certified. You've got to keep up the good work. You've got to educate your staff. You've got to keep reminding the business, if you like, that it's just because we've got one certificate, we can't rest on our laurels. We've got to keep on top of it. We've got to keep doing those good practices. It's a never-ending challenge, cybersecurity. There's new threats all the time, so get certified and stay certified. And be confident in the basics. Don't try to get too many certificates. Just start off with Cyber Essentials. Make sure you're doing that really well, and be confident in the basics, because, as I said, that eliminates most of the risk fairly quickly. And then look to the next step in your journey. So that's it in terms of my slides. Thank you very much for listening.